Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you guys so much for joining, participating, hanging out with us. This is going to be an interactive show, so I do appreciate if you can join in. I think it would be great for the whole Mandela Effect community to share below the video with your comments, and that way you can read other people's messages that they've gotten. But I wanted to go over the messages I've received in the Mandela Effect and how I went about it. And I really feel like, if anything, I've learned from the Mandela Effect that this is an individual journey for everybody. Even within the Mandela Effect, people see different effects. Different effects affect people in different ways. And for some people, they might have a 100% one that's changed, but for someone else, it's 100% always been that way. So you can't really judge the Mandela Effect on other people's perception of it. You really have to look at the individual perception of it as you, as a point of consciousness. And we're going to get into how important your point of view is also in the show. But first, I want to let you guys know that we have an upcoming live stream this Saturday with SunPsychic Jean. It's going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern Time here on this channel, Unbiased and On the Fence. And then next week on the 25th of May, over on the International Mandela Effect Conference YouTube channel, we're going to have another live stream of our monthly Open Tables episode, and we're going to have special guest Donald Hoffman in. He's an author and a professor, and I'm a big fan of his work, so I'm really looking forward to hearing his perspective on the Mandela Effect and how it fits in with his research. So those links are in the description below, so if you want to click them and set a reminder, that way you don't miss them, because I know a lot of people were wanting to join in with the chat and they want that sense of community. So if you mark the calendar, you can join in live, ask your questions live this Saturday on this channel with SunPsychic Jean, and next week with Donald Hoffman on Open Tables on the International Mandela Effect Conference YouTube channel. So with that out of the way, in this episode, I want to talk about basically my interactions with the Mandela Effect, how I went about getting messages. And like I was saying with the Mandela Effect, it's a very individual ride. So everyone's going to come up with completely different messages, but that's sort of the point. And which is why I think it's important for us to practice this and not to take what I get as your message. I have resonated with other people's messages in the past that they've received from the Mandela Effect, but also I've gotten my own messages. And as you see, like our life experiences, if you will create different results within this process I'm going to share with you. So before we get started, and you can, jot this down on a piece of paper. If you want, you can just leave a comment below. And then if you want to participate later in it, you can reply to your own comment with any further data that you collect while you're working through this exercise. So I want to ask 2 questions, and right after I ask the question, I'll give you a moment. But if you need longer, if something doesn't pop in your head immediately, simply just pause the video for a second until you get it, and then unpause it, and I'll go on to the next question. So there's going to be 2 questions. I think it'd be great if you either jot it down or, like I said, if you don't have paper readily available, just leave a comment with what you get, and we'll work from that. So the first question, if you just relax, take a deep breath, and listen in your mind. Do you hear a song playing in your head? What song do you hear playing in your head? Okay, so if you got your song, you can jot that down. The next question I have for you, and you can pause it if you need more time, but is when I ask you about a Mandela Effect change, what's the first Mandela Effect that crosses your mind? Okay, so this gets me into a lot of the work I do within my Beyond Quantum Healing sessions that I work one-on-one with people, is this idea of what we typically think of as random. And with my research into the global coherence, or actually it's the Global Consciousness Project, but they have random number generators all over the world, and it's been shown to have anomalous results as global coherence, consciousness coherence seems to change, or people get aligned, seems to bring up strange numbers. So a lot of this thought came from that research with the Global Consciousness Project, and you can look that up on the princeton.edu website or just Google Global Consciousness Project. But for those who don't know, big events like 9/11, these numbers started, it's basically like a coin flip where you're getting heads or tails, and it should be like 50-50 most of the time. But whenever something's happening globally, they've noticed that these number generators will tend to kind of vary a little bit off of 50%. And when they do this, they can see that there's something happening with what we typically think of as random that doesn't seem to be very random. So if this whole thing's taught me anything within this journey, this research within the Mandela Effect, is that I don't believe there's anything that's random. I believe everything's orchestrated, purposely there for some reason. I don't feel like anything's there for no reason at all. So I feel like we're in if you can think of it like a movie or a game, a cosmic play, not as an ideology or religion, but just as a thought experiment, right? I know when I was a teenager, I had a job. I'll come back to the screen for a second. I had a job working in the clothing business, and we would get a truck in with all these boxes, and we would have to put tags on the clothes and everything. And it was kind of a tedious, boring job, but I made it a lot of fun when I would, challenge other employees to see how much we could do. Not only were we more productive, the day went by a lot faster because we were making a game out of it. And it was just, I was much more happy. And I come across a lot of people that feel like impatient with what's going on right now. But if you get that sort of gamer mentality and realize that you are here for a specific purpose, everyone is. Everyone has something to bring to the table here. And that's what I really want to bring out with these Mandela Effect interactions. And it goes right along with your experiences. So without further ado, let's get to it. I've got my drawing pad here because I want to go over I just want to kind of draw out what I'm discussing here and sort of my train of thought here. So with you, it's going to be completely different. Hopefully you've got your Mandela Effect in your song that popped up, and you can write that below or on a piece of paper. But for me, I want to, I'll use one example that I used from my talk about Oscar Mayer, right? So whenever you look at a Mandela Effect change, you want to look at, Oscar, Mamboloni as a first name, Oscar, Mamboloni as a second name. It's M-E, Mandela Effect, Y-E-R. I like that. Okay, so for those that don't know, this is no longer correct. It's actually spelled M-A-Y-E-R. So this is the current reality, and that is what people remember. That no longer exists. So from here, when I looked at this change, I looked at, Mayer. I don't know any mayors or anything to do with Mayer, except for the singer, John Mayer, So John Mayer popped into my head first. Now for you, this might be different. Maybe you spent, maybe it sounded like mayor to you, right? And it reminded you of a summer you spent with your uncle who's a mayor or something. So this is going to be completely different for you. I'm leading you down my thought of random thoughts that came into my head. Random, I use that in quotes because I don't believe anything is random. So what thoughts did the Mandela Effect spawn in your mind? For me, it was John Mayer. When I got to John Mayer, I appreciated his music. And I didn't really know, I don't really have a favorite. I like a lot of his different music and everything. So I wasn't really sure as far as, where to go with it. So I just used my first introduction into John Mayer. When I first came across John Mayer, I heard about a song called No Such Thing. Okay, so we got No Such Thing. And in this song, No Such Thing, he says there's no such thing as the real world. It's a lie you have to rise above. There's no such thing as a real world. So at the time, I had been realizing that, this was one of my first Mandela Effects, by the way, after realizing. So it took me about a year to get over that hump of disbelief and cognitive dissonance to realize that it was actually happening. And I have no doubt about the fact that it's happening right now. It's real. I know, so I've gone through several stages, right? It was, is it real? That took me about a year. And then is it positive or negative? And for me, this didn't take me long, and this can actually lead you into a dark, depressing place, because if you think it's negative, right, you're going to feel like your whole world's crumbling down, and that there's some kind of negative force that can change things. But as I looked at it logically, for me, it made more sense to either not judge it, not to say it's positive or negative, to just stay neutral with it. They're observable changes that we see, but not to apply any positive or negative to it. But, and I'm unbiased on the fence, of course, but I'm an optimist as well. So there's not a lot I can do with negative. Plus, from what I was seeing with my experiences with it, if someone was out to do negative or harm with the Mandela Effect, I think they could have done a lot worse than the seemingly minor changes that we see. Even within some of the changes that we do see, like the traffic lights changing, right? For some people, and this is the Mandela Effect for me, but I totally think it's a Mandela Effect for some people. But for me, the red light on the top, yellow in the middle, and the green on the bottom on a traffic light has always been that way. But for other people, they've noticed it's changed. The green used to be on the top, yellow in the middle, and red on the bottom. And it makes more sense to them like that. I can see how that makes more sense. But for me, I have an anchor memory of it being red on the top, and it's always been that way for me. But you can see within this change, within that change, if it happened in a way that people didn't realize it changed, we could have, in the middle of traffic, the lights swap and change, we could have had a disaster on our hands. But no such thing ever happened, no such thing. No such reports of lights changing and accidents happening, which it would be a huge deal, I think. So not only was a huge change like traffic lights changing, the fact that it happened is mind-blowing, but the fact that it happened without there being like huge ramifications of traffic accidents with the lights moving around is another layer to the incredibleness of that specific change. So for me, as I was looking at the question of positive and negative, to me it didn't make sense that it was a negative. You could do a lot more harm if you could change reality. I mean, somebody could open up a hole underneath me, I could fall in it, and they could close it right back up and no one would ever see, right? So if they were after me, or something was out to get me, they're not doing a very good job with the Mandela Effect anyway. So for me, it was a matter of just looking at it neutrally, or even looking at it optimistically and say, could this be a good thing? And I was led to answers that led me to believe that this is not only a positive thing, but it's an intelligent thing. And so I've seen some of the changes within. Let me give you a quick example that I like here, because Superman had two actors that played him. The first was George Reeve, and the second was Christopher Reeves. Now, for me, I watched the first Superman, but I didn't know the names were the same or similar. So I didn't know George Reeve as an actor, but I did watch the Superman as a kid. I was very familiar with Christopher Reeves, and I knew his name very well. So for me, when Christopher Reeves got Mandela affected into Christopher Reeve, people that knew both actors, many of them, it's just kind of the way our memory works, right? So if you heard that Reeves turned to Reeve, you would say, oh, well, I remember he had the same name as George Reeve, except one of them had an S and one of them didn't. But in this specific Mandela Effect, one of them gained an S and one of them lost an S. So if you were remembering it by the fact that one was Reeve and one was Reeves, you will never notice this. So I look at that as intelligent. So not only do I look at it as an intelligent change, I also look at it as an individual change. So the more I got to looking at the intelligence in these changes, the more I realized that it was not just for everybody, but everyone can look at it in an individual way. So that leads us back to the song, No Such Thing. And let me clear this off here. Okay, so when I came across this song, No Such Thing, I started playing it more, because I've learned a lot of songs over the years, and I play the guitar and I sing. So I was like, oh, let's just kind of jam out to that for a while. It wasn't until I don't know, a few months back, I don't know, for some reason I pulled the lyrics up and saw that I had been singing something wrong. So this was a Mandela Effect. I didn't realize it at the time, but when I was sent to the song, No Such Thing, it actually contained a Mandela Effect in the lyrics, and I didn't notice it right away. It wasn't until I pulled up the lyrics and noticed that at one point in the song, he says, I never dreamed the life of a prom king or a drama queen. That word, dreamed, had changed for me. I remembered it as lived. So when I looked at this change, to me, it followed the same sort of thinking, right? Because, you know, if there's a real world, you live in it, right? But if the world isn't real, you're not living it. Are we dreaming this? So it sort of brought me further clarification. Now, like I was saying, you probably get something completely different, and that's why I'm just showing this as sort of a guideline for how I ended up getting the message. All right, I had to chime in here because I like to look to make sure there's no flip-flops whenever I'm creating a video, at least at the time that I upload it. And I didn't get a flip-flop, but I did get a third variation, which seems to happen a lot with different Mandela effects, where you get 3 versions, like the Thinker, the Mona Lisa. I think that might actually have 4 now. But regardless, I wanted to chime back in because I now have 3 variations of this specific lyric, and my heart like jumped when I looked up the lyrics and saw, I thought it had flip-flopped because I saw the first word lived, but this is how it happened for me. Originally, I knew it as I never lived the life of a prom king or a drama queen. Then when I discovered it had changed to I never dreamed the life of a prom king or a drama queen. But I just looked it up to make sure that was still the current version, and it now reads, I never lived the dream of the prom kings and the drama queens. So it's changed quite a bit now that kings and queens, the definite article and its plural, the prom kings and the drama queens. And it's no longer dreamed the life, but it's lived the dream. So anyway, it still follows the same logic, but just in case, somebody was not Mandela affected by this and they knew the current version, because you just never know, I did want to chime in and let you guys know that the current version of the lyrics, at least at this date of May 19th, is I never lived the dream of the prom kings and the drama queens. So this has a second change. And it's so funny because I was actually doubting this as a Mandela effect. And I wanted to bring that out in the video, not to let your doubt of a Mandela effect stop you from looking further into it. If it seems like it's changed to you, the important thing is that it's your attention was brought to it. It's not really important that you convince other people that it changed. In fact, these aren't 100% changes for me. It's just, and I'm like suffering from cognitive dissonance as I'm reading this here. I'm like, man, did I really get this screwed up? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's just so weird when you see something change and it's just not the way you remember it, So I can't be sure. And I wanted to tell you that some changes you might not be sure of, but that doesn't matter. Follow it and see where it leads you. And there might be a little nugget there. Now, back to the original video and off to randomness, quote unquote. So when we think about random stuff, I was playing a game with my kids the other day, and I got lucky, and I got one of them. And it was a lucky thing, and I was like, I feel like it's my higher self helping me out. And, of course, my son was like, I don't want to hear it. That was complete RNG. And I'm like, RNG? He's like, random number generator. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's a random number generator. But I don't believe in random. He's like, oh, come on. So here's the thing. Random number generators. This was amazing because while all this was going on, and my thought of, I've been talking about it on this channel for a while, that the whole idea of randomness, right? That I don't think anything's random. When we sort of pull something into our awareness, either by me asking you, think of a song, what song is playing in your head? That was like me giving you input, and then something moved into your awareness. And I believe whatever moves into our awareness is not always caused by us. And I give this example of my daughter. When I had her do the song example, she came up with the song, the ABC song. The ABC song. And I'm like, ABC? And she's like, gosh, I don't even think of that as a song. That's so weird. And I'm like, well, that's your higher self. It's giving you something that you would have never, I mean, it's not your favorite song. You didn't just listen to it. It might have been the first song you learned, but I don't know. But the main thing is she didn't even see the ABC song as a song. And it was like a week or two later, she was looking for something lost. And I said, just ask your higher self where it is. And I said, it's probably going to be next to something with ABC on it, since that was like the last sort of communication you had with it. So sure enough, a little bit later, not far in the same room, she found the item she was looking for, along with, there was like a coloring book for my granddaughter, and it had ABC on it. So she was like, how'd you know that? Are you psychic? And I'm like, no, I know how this game works, and I know how the higher self like toys with us all the time, and I see it happen all the time. So she got the ABC song, and so I think that was a good example of how this whole random thing works, because that ABC song moved into her awareness. She didn't go grab it, but it just popped in her head. And even when I was asking what song is playing in your head earlier, some of you might have realized that you've had a song playing in your head all day and you hadn't even noticed it until I asked, and then you noticed it. But this happens a lot to me, where I'll hear a song in my head for a few hours after waking up before even realizing, like, oh, why is that song playing in my head? And there's typically a message in that song for me. So I don't believe anything's random. I believe when things move into your awareness, there's a specific reason for it. And that was just one example, the randomness in that. So, as I work with people in the Beyond Quantum Healing sessions, I work with a lot of people that work with a lot of people. So I get to hear a lot of stories, interactions, things people are going through. And a repeating theme I've seen right now is people, not only getting super impatient, which I was just pointing out the fact that you can help the impatience with making it a game, making it funner, finding your bliss, following your desires, finding your happiness, and that makes time go by faster because you're having a good time. Time's flying, right? So with this whole thing, let's see, with the randomness and a video that had come back to me from a while back, and you guys, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but it was a Mandela Effect I'd come across in the movie with Eddie Murphy called The Golden Child. And in that movie, I had remembered him walking in the basement and them asking him, well, what do you want to ask? And he says, tell me about the kid, talking about the golden child. But when I was watching it recently, it had undergone a Mandela effect. No longer did he say, tell me about the kid. He said, tell me about the golden child. And in that movie, The Golden Child, which I pointed out in that previous video, but the golden child, the main character, Eddie Murphy, was the chosen one. Chosen one. And he even made jokes about it, He goes, I am the chosen one in all this, because he was the chosen one to save the golden child. And although he made lots of jokes about it, he did his mission. He had a good time doing it. And he was the chosen one. And it really came back to me at that time when this Mandela effect happened, that the message in that was that each one of us is so important. Each one of us is bringing something to the table. Each one of us are the star of our own show. And we are worthy. And so there's a lot of people feeling unworthy, feeling impatient, feeling like they're not even doing anything here. But everyone is actually bringing something to the table. Let me see. I'm going to pull a picture up here and show you sort of this visual that I got here. Okay, here's a picture of me and my beautiful little granddaughter, Ava. Okay, so as we look at this image right here, as you guys know, when you zoom way in on an image, it becomes super duper pixelated, right? Well, each one of these pixels are so important. And this is the image I get all the time that I want to share with you guys. Each one of us are a pixel of this grand tapestry or image of everything. And each one of us has our own individual color, our own individual pixel that is our responsibility. It's our individuality. It's our unique expression. Now, this is an oversimplification, of course, because many of these look close to the same, but you can see they vary a little bit. But you can see the problem with when you think of oneness and one world government, and you hear about all this oneness stuff, right? And it's like, how do I determine, like, because I heard one world government was bad, right? And I heard, being unique is good. So, and of course, being one as a people is good. So this picture is a perfect example of how this picture is one. All of these pixels come together to create one image, but each individual pixel maintains its individuality. And what I guess when you think of governments coming in or whoever trying to, even if this pixel right here in the middle, say this guy here thinks he knows all the answers and that everybody needs to be his color, what's going to happen if this spreads and everybody becomes this exact color? You're going to have this weird square in the middle of the image messing it up, right? So everyone needs to maintain their unique. I mean, think about our fingerprints, our retinas, everything about us is unique. We're similar, but we're all unique. And so is our journey. And we can't expect everyone's journey to go the same exact way our journey goes. So keeping this in mind, you've got your own pixel, you've got your own individual keys to unlock your own individual reality. And that's why this is going to work so well for so many of you as you look into this and see how your pixel is beautiful. And we need to celebrate diversity, right? We need to celebrate everybody's uniqueness. And we don't want to take away everybody's individuality. We want everybody to bring it all together to create this beautiful picture where we all do our little part with our pixels, right? And if any one of these, if the government comes in and says, hey, everybody needs to be blue, we're going to get stuck with a solid blue image, right? And that's not very beautiful. So we want to maintain our individuality. We want to understand everybody's on their individual journey. And even amongst waking people up to the fact that the Mandela Effect is actually happening, we need to let people be there too, because people aren't going to wake up until they're absolutely ready, right? So that's the message I got within the golden child is that each one of us is the chosen one for our individual journey, and all of us are worthy. All of us are bringing something special to the table. So with that, with the individual keys or whatever, I want to move on to my newest Mandela Effect, which it was really amazing because I just came across this morning while I was pondering this video, right? So I was talking to my son the other day, and let me see if I can kind of draw a crude drawing here. Let's see. Let's make it like that. Okay. Do you guys know these karate things that kind of looks like this here with a little chain connecting them? What do you call those things? Okay, because in my memory, it was, whoops, I started to put a nunchucks. This is how I remember this. But I said it to my son the other day, and he's like, you mean nunchucks? And I'm like, no, I mean nunchucks. It's nunchucks. I'm like, no, it's nunchucks. I'm like, no, if it's nunchucks, it's a Mandela Effect, because there's no doubt in my mind it was nunchucks. So I look it up. Sure enough, it's nunchucks. So how do I get a message out of this, right? I was sitting here looking at, trying to get a message out, and I'm thinking, nunchucks, chucking something, throwing something, nuns, throwing nuns? No. No, I mean, you can go down this funny thought, but and that was because I was focused on the change. But when I went back to what I thought the original was, I realized that num, and you break it here, num could be number, throwing out numbers. So number chuck, throwing out numbers. Now that sounds awfully random, doesn't it? Throwing out numbers, as in a random number generator. Oops, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm going to back it out a little bit. Random number generator, just as my son had said. So when it changed from number chuck or num chuck to none chuck, this to me, chucking out numbers is random. It's like, oh, we're just throwing out numbers, like you might throw out a die, right? But when I think of none, unless I'm thinking of nuns, this sounds like none chuck or nunchucks. So this Mandela Effect change led me to the fact that there is no such thing as random, as I had already been thinking, right? There's no such thing as randomness. When something moves into your awareness, it moves into your awareness for a reason. So when I actually got this message, and it supported this whole idea of, I've been working with the random stuff recently, and then with my son saying it was, whenever they say RNG, and I'm like, RNG, what's that? Random number generator. Of course I knew what it was, but I didn't know the kids have like an acronym for it now, and that, it's a thing, because the moment I said RNG, 2 of my kids chimed in, random number generator, like it's a thing now, right? Which is beautiful, because I'm glad they're aware of it, because it made it so much easier for me to explain why I didn't think it was random. Of course, they weren't as accepting of that. But I wanted to put this out because I thought it was a great way to show, as crazy as this sounds, and as much as this means to me or meant to me, you'll get something completely different because your life experience, maybe you've always called it nunchucks, maybe it was a completely different Mandela Effect. So I'd like you to start with the awareness of the Mandela Effect that just popped into your head. Which Mandela Effect popped into your head? And just sit with that. Brainstorm for a while, daydream for a while, and see what pops into your awareness and what sort of logic you can get out of that. Because as I dig deeper into this Mandela Effect, not only does it seem to be intelligent, but it seems to be personal for each individual. It seems to be an individual journey for each one of us, just like everything else about life. So I would really love for you to participate, join in the chat below, or in the comments below, and what kind of results did you get? What kind of message did you get from looking deeper at the Mandela effects? Because there's no doubt it's happening. Nobody really knows why, but I have determined that it does seem to be intelligent changes, and it does seem to be personal changes. And, maybe it's confirmation bias or something like that. Who knows? Let's look at the data below, and we'll see what happens. So lots of love, light, and unity. We'll see you on the next one. I got a lot more coming up, so stay tuned. Peace.